Happy November, nerds. So I have started, deleted, restarted, stopped, deleted, restarted this episode a bunch of times. Partly I'm just annoyed with myself for thinking of November as the start of the holiday season when we have both Indigenous Peoples Day and National Coming Out Day at the beginning of October, and I somehow missed both of them. But this isn't, my personal therapy session, so I'm not going to dwell on it. We'll just push forward, I'll apologize, and then next year I'll try to find some particularly good wines for those holidays. I actually already have some ideas, so how's that for 365 days of foreshadowing? In the meantime, the other reason this video is a little difficult is because, of course, Thanksgiving is, a primarily US holiday, and I do hope eventually that NerdVine will be like international audiences, because wine snobbery and love exists everywhere, and we're just trying to go for the love. And then also, even in the US, Thanksgiving is like kind of fraught with socio-political tension. So for the purpose of this video, cats are going nuts. Please understand that I indulge in this hope that someday Thanksgiving will be just a worldwide day, Peaches agrees, a worldwide day of gratitude and where all humans, regardless of politics, social standing, economic standing, race, color, sex, gender, whatever categories I'm missing, can take a moment to truly reflect in gratitude, especially because a lot of the rest of the winter holidays can get really stressful and a little commercial. And of course, this moment should be absolutely shared over food and wine, as so many good moments are. So now that I've shared some of my hopes and dreams with you, let's get down to business. If you are doing a traditional turkey, stuffing, potato, rolls, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce type of dinner, you may be starting with some bubbles. Bubbles. They're getting a little deflated. In order to choose which bubbles, the first thing you need to decide is if you'll be overlapping these bubs with appetizers. And if so, what is the dominating flavor of your appetizers? So are you mostly doing sweet appies, salty, savory? If you're doing like a real mix, you may want to stick with actual champagnes, as the higher acid and medium fruit can go really well with the salty apps and won't be a huge detriment to your sweet and savory options. If you, like my partner, are not a huge champagne fan, I would still look to a cooler climate option like the Cremant we had in the Cremant video, over a more fruit-dominated bub like Prosecco or Cava. Of course, if you aren't doing appetizers, just do whatever bubbles make you happy. Moving on to the main course, you may be thinking, okay, white wine with white, and so turkey and ham. Is ham a white meat? I don't know. You don't have to stick with white here. So we kind of talked about that in the food pairing video. This is where your pairing knowledge may really help you out. Or my pairing knowledge, our pairing knowledge. You may want to be able to offer a red and a white, in which case what we need to think is okay, so turkey. Not typically high fat, so we're probably not wanting a lot of tannin. I'm so sorry, cab lovers. And then we look at the sides, like potatoes, green beans, sweet potatoes. Sorry, not sorry, but these aren't super flavorful, and they're really only high in the fat after we add butter or gravy or whatever. But a big player may actually be your cranberry sauce, whether you're doing canned or actual little berries. And cranberries are quite tart, so that can really cut the sweetness of whatever you're drinking. So low tannin, fruit forward, preferably higher acid to cleanse the palate between bites and avoid that flavor fatigue. Really sounds like a dry Riesling, a Pinot, or a Zinfandel to me. I also don't know if I made up flavor fatigue or if I heard that somewhere, but I'm really liking that. And I hope you understand what I mean by the flavor fatigue on the palate, where you kind of almost lose your ability to taste the food, even though the first taste was so good. Okay, now, if you're doing a dessert post-dinner, I always recommend just going for a good dessert wine or a dessert-style beverage. But if you are adamant about having a traditional sweet dessert, primary traditional contenders are pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, and pecan pie. Pumpkin pie is usually the least sugary sweet of these options, so if you are 100% anti-dessert wine, I would put this pie with either a warm climate Chardonnay and shoot for American oak over French, or maybe an Auslese Riesling. But if you're open to a tawny port, the spicy nuttiness just screams autumnal match made in heaven to me. Sweet potato pie, at least to me, is always this marshmallow style of sweet. And I have no other good way to describe what I mean by that, but maybe it's the texture. I don't know. Anyway, I'm definitely wanting acid for this one because of the increase of sweetness. So I'd say a Riesling would could be good again, and ideal if you're planning on serving both types of pie. But you could push to a Pinot Gris, I think. In case you have not had a chance to watch I think I called it Pinot Gris, but the Pinot Grigio versus Pinot Gris video, I want to emphasize that for this pie, you're going to want to stick with the Gris because you want the fruity fullness of the Gris as opposed to that more crispness of the Grigios. Pecan pie is going to be a little tough. It is wildly sweet. I'm not sure what all goes into that like caramelized filling, but it's sticky enough that I'm fairly convinced it is 99% sugar. The even trickier part is that pecan skins are technically bitter and also tannic. So I'm trying to think of like a non-dessert wine you could do with this one, but the first wine that comes to mind for me is an Amarone della Valpolicella, followed closely by port. Okay, now that I'm thinking about ports like ruby ports, I'm thinking a really full-bodied Shiraz might work too. Specifically Shiraz from the warmer areas of Australia, not Syrah from France. I know it's the same grape, but yeah, that could work. Okay. But in all seriousness, even as a diehard wine lover for like all of these pies, you could just put a shot of Drambuie in your coffee or do an Irish coffee. You don't have to do wine. Nobody heard me say that. Okay, now that we've talked traditional foods, let's do a quick nod to all the people who don't do this type of dinner. So my partner makes a mean stuffing or dressing or whatever you want to call it, and I am a huge fan of pairing that with takeout because our first Thanksgiving together we did Indian food because butter chicken for life, and I think last year we had Chinese takeout. So if you are down for spending a day in gratitude and hanging out with family, but not so much for the traditional foodstuffs, the first thing I'd recommend is to go watch or rewatch the food pairing video. And the second thing I'd recommend is that typically Thanksgiving takeout will either be Indian or Chinese food. And in all honesty, beer goes great with both of those. I'm like half kidding. If you want to do wine, because wine, with either of these cuisines, the first thing to do is to decide, are you doing spicy or non-spicy? So spicy is going to beg for lower alcohol and more fruit forward. Non-spicy is going to be a little more open. Admittedly, when I get takeout, I play it very safe. So I get like just shy of Indian level spice butter chicken, which I like to pair with fruit forward bubbles, warm climate Chardonnay, and Beaujolais. Maybe I should say or Beaujolais. I don't drink all three of them at the same. I might. Okay, if I get Chinese, I usually get fried rice, red bean cakes, and sesame chicken, which are honestly a lot of different flavor profiles, and I just sort of force them to work with basically the same options I just mentioned, and then maybe rosé if it's like a nice summertime thing. Because my experience with these foods is fairly limited, something I will work to change. I guess I should look at other menu options. I am going to include in the video description the wine folly suggestions for pairing Indian and Chinese takeout because, well, I trust the wine folly suggestions, to be honest, and they also just sounded really good when I reviewed them. So check that video description for those links. Okay, to wrap this up, I hope your Thanksgiving is everything you want it to be. 2 Thanksgivings ago, my partner and I were in the UK with friends who are basically family, eating sticky toffee pudding and laughing so hard we cried. This year, we're looking at spending some time in nature with a couple friends and our cats. You can't really see Amos, but he's like right here. And now I want to know, like, what do your Thanksgivings look like? What do you normally eat? What do you normally drink? Are you new to Thanksgiving and you want to give it a try? Are you overhauling your Thanksgiving to start new traditions? Post in the comments below and let's make this holiday ours. Cheers, my loves. I am so grateful for each and every one of you.